You asked for it, so I'm going to give it to you. This is my view on the big Australia, Canada with Denmark and GBR mixed in incident. Now, I have a view on the penalties, but I also have an opinion that I've not seen expressed anymore, where I actually think there are almost two penalties in here, two separate incidents, one against Canada and one against Denmark. And depending on when you say the infringement took place, can kind of skew your view on whether you think GBR or Australia are to blame. Canada looking to turn and go right. They pick up a load of boats who are inside them. Melee ensues. Denmark, Canada almost come together. Canada splashing down. GBR fly through, no intention to stop at all, and Australia put the nice jibe in and get out the other way. So, yeah, that is the incident itself. Now, Mark Jardine at Sail World has done an excellent video on this, and I well recommend you take a look at it. These are just a few screen grabs from that video that I'm going to use for illustration, but please do go and check out Sail World's video because he's got an explanation from Craig Mitchell, the chief umpire. I think there were possibly two incidents. So this one, Denmark are on starboard, Canada are on starboard, GBR port, Australia on port. And who is infringed at this point? Well, you can see Canada, if I get my magic pan out, Canada have made this turn and are coming in this way. But I think at this point, they've still not made avoiding action. So I don't think Canada have yet been infringed. Denmark, on the other hand, have been coming in here and they started turning up, but just at this point where I freeze the video is where they're now starting to turn back onto port. And I think Denmark are the boat in this situation which has been infringed at this very point in time, and Canada has not yet been infringed. Okay, so who is infringing Denmark? And I think this goes back to Craig Mitchell's explanation. You look over, well, GBR are, because it's Denmark is directly avoiding GBR, who are on port. But then you have Australia, who aren't at the moment giving space to GBR to keep clear. So I think at this point, you know, Denmark have flipped back onto port, and I'd say in that very moment, Australia were probably to blame and could pick up the penalty. Now, moving forward in time, you'll see Canada still have not avoided or taken an avoiding action. And it's only then, at this point now, that Canada have come through here, and they have come through, and it's only now they're starting to bear off. And who's infringing Canada? Well, you know, Denmark are infringing Canada, but they don't have space to avoid Canada because of GBR, who you can see there's no blue box there. That means that foil is not down. They're continuing through. So I think it's Denmark are infringing Canada, but they are exonerated because GBR aren't giving them room to avoid Canada. And at this point, are Australia then giving GBR room to avoid Denmark? I think at this point, once Canada becomes involved, Australia are giving them room. So I think at this point, Australia, big tick, are turning away, are giving GBR room, and it's really the incident with Canada is between these three boats. So that's my take on the rules incident, a little bit different to other people. I think there's almost potentially kind of two incidents there when Denmark flipped back either way, because, and if you take it from the moment Denmark are infringed, then possibly Australia is due a penalty, but relative to Canada, I don't think they are. Now, whilst I think Australia were unlucky to get the penalty and Canada were obviously unlucky to be obstructed, I've not got that much sympathy for either team, because I think tactically, in terms of the race situation they were in, both played this pretty naively, jumping over. Now, leeward gates, on a normal mark rounding with no other boats around, you want to do a nice out in wide and out close maneuver. And actually with leeward gates, it can pay often to kind of hit this spot in the middle of the gate so that you get options to either go right or options to go left, and you can make that call relatively last minute and still do an out wide and in close turn. However, tactically, that is not the situation they are in. That is not the phase of the race. This is the first leeward mark, and other than the start, it's probably the biggest opportunity to make a significant loss. I think boats at the first leeward mark should be looking to get into the mark protection zones, the 3 boat lengths, as quick as possible and get out and onto the next leg, rather than making the perfect rounding, because the closer you get to the centre of the gate, the more chance you have of engaging with other boats, and regardless of the rule situation, you will often end up doing worse relative to the fleet, even if you win a boat-on-boat interaction. So first of all, let's talk about Australia. Unlucky to get a penalty. However, in their situation here, just highlight them, they know that they are a port boat and they've got at least 1, 2, 3 boats on the hip, maybe 4 or 5 once New Zealand and Germany jibe onto port as well. And they know at some point at least Canada and Denmark are not laying the left-hand mark, so you should be expecting at some point these 2 boats are going to flop on and make their turns on to starboard. And at that point, as a port boat, Australia here are vulnerable coming in on port to a leeward gate. I think Australia, their naivety is they push hard to the centre of the gate to make this perfect rounding. Here you can see as we get close to the mark, they are still driving towards the centre of the gate and this interaction with other boats, whereas really what they should be looking to do, the safer option, even if it gives away a bit of their mark rounding kind of perfection, is to dive for the 3 boat length zone and get that protection of the mark zone from the starboard boats. So I think Australia here are a little bit naive, and if we play the footage forward, you can see they just hang on and hang on and hang on and hang on. And actually, this interaction here, where they come off on the wrong side of the rules judgment, they could have avoided just by diving for the mark round in a similar way to actually what Switzerland do. And Switzerland were having a very good event, and I think again just banking that protection. Canada similarly, I think were pretty naive. So they are out on the left-hand side. They know they're not making it. They are not going to make it down to this left-hand turn here. So they are going to have to jibe onto starboard at some point. The question is, what do Canada really think is going to happen when they jibe onto starboard? Because if we play this forward, all these boats are condensing and condensing into a smaller and smaller space, and Canada initiate their jibe at this point. And if we look at it, they've got this whole pack of boats inside them. Where do Canada think those boats are going to go? And even if those boats can avoid them and somehow get round this right-hand turn, Canada are going to be right on the outside of that. So it's not even if all the boats manage to avoid them, it's not a good situation. But they are jibing into a situation where, regardless of the rules, if they come into contact with another boat or they end up in an incident like they do dropping off falls, there's lots to lose. I'm surprised that Canada don't do a flip-flop jibe. So we know from the Mark Jardine Sail World footage that they jibe, but they don't ever get their starboard foil or they bring their starboard foil off the lock to raise it. Whereas really, for me, they should be aiming, if I can just clear this out, they should be aiming all along to do this first jibe, but instantly flop back, just do a 2-board down, zigzag, push some of these boats to avoid them and go right, but they should always be looking to flip-flop back and go left. That they don't do that because they do start raising their starboard foil. Yeah, sure, in absence of other boats, it would have been quicker to do a single jibe and go right. But looking at the melee it is, I think they just want to, stay on the side of the pack they are. They don't want to be traversing across the middle of the gate. Again, both Australia and Canada, the issues come by two boats kind of pushing to the centre of that gate when they should have been content just to make it round on their own side. My view on why Canada and Australia I'm not that sympathetic to, because I think both of them kind of made tactical errors in the way they position themselves relative to that gate. Let me know if you agree or not. And but an interesting position. I'm also going to think about maybe saying something about the final, because despite me putting a video saying the finals aren't always the most interesting, I thought this one was relatively interesting in terms of how the teams approached it, kind of strategic wise, and we did have a few changes of position, so maybe I should talk about that as well. Anyway, hope you enjoyed my view on this kind of Leeward Mark incident. Hopefully I gave you something more on the kind of more strategic or tactical considerations. And take care and see you around.